Now for special senses, the first two that we'll talk about in this segment are the chemoreceptors, or the chemical senses. So these are special senses, are generally speaking the senses that are in the head. So vision, smell, taste, hearing, and equilibrium. First off, like I said, we'll talk about the sense of smell, which is one of the chemical senses. So olfaction is another name for it, so you want to be familiar with both terms. The olfactory receptors are considered chemoreceptors because they are going to, in order to smell something, that these molecules are going to have to dissolve in the mucus that's found in the nose and change the chemistry of the mucus, and that's how we are able to stimulate these chemical receptors in the nose, and that's how we can actually smell them. Smell is actually provides about, most of your sense of taste. Okay, so about 75% of your sense of taste is related to smell. So you'll find that if you have allergies or a cold, that you kind of lost your sense of taste, and that's because of the taste buds are fine, but it is really because of the loss of sense of smell. The olfactory organs, or where do we find the receptor cells? They're found on the olfactory mucosa that is found all the way at the upper part of the nasal cavity. It is also found on the part of the nose that is known as the superior nasal concha and the upper part of the nasal septum. Our noses have the ability to bind to about 400 kinds of different odorants or things that we smell that can lead to the depolarization and action potentials. So here you can see this is where the olfactory mucosa is. That is the nose. We have these three different shelves. They're known as concha. So the one on the top is the superior nasal concha, and that is a part of bone known as the cribriform plate because it has all of these perforations. So this right here is that same image. Okay, you can see here that cribriform plate of the ethmoid bone, and it has all of these little tunnels or holes, and you could see the cells that have hair cells or cilia and the tip, and these are going to be embedded within the mucosa. Remember, the nasal cavity is lined by a mucous membrane that makes mucus. Now that these cilia are going to be embedded in that mucus, when we smell something and those receptors or those molecules dissolve in the mucus, that's going to lead to the stimulation of these receptors. And then through that cribriform plate, these signals will go up towards the cranial cavity. So you're now inside of the skull. And then all of these cell bodies are going to unite, and that will make what is known as the olfactory bulb. And that is the first cranial nerve, or olfactory nerve. We consider really the olfactory nerve kind of like an extension of the CNS. Another thing that is kind of unique to it, that it doesn't relay in the thalamus like all other senses do. So the olfactory pathway is that you stimulate those hair cells or the cilia. It'll go through the cribriform plate into the olfactory bulb, and then from the olfactory bulb to the olfactory tracts to the limbic system. So the only sense that will affect us emotionally would be the olfactory pathway. You want to think of different things. So if you walk into an area that smells really bad, okay, you are definitely going to emotionally react to it. If you go into a store, and again, they use, these marketing people use science for marketing. If you walk into a store that smells really nice and they have candles as soon as you walk in, that is going to leave a very positive effect on you, and you are going to feel more motivated to purchase. So again, they are using the fact that olfaction or smell affects our limbic system. So they want you to feel good. They want you to motivate you in order to make more purchases. So limbic system for emotions, and then it will go to the olfactory cortex for interpretation. Interpretation of, like, oh, do I like the smell? Do I not like it? Does it remind me of other things? And so on. Now for the sense of taste or gustation, again, you want to know that term. We have taste buds, and those are the little kind of papillae that you see on the tongue. These are not considered your actual taste buds, okay? So the papillae have lots of taste buds. So each one little bump that you see on the tongue is not one taste bud, it's tons of taste buds collected together. So these taste buds are found on the papillae of the tongue, on the roof of the mouth, on the inner linings of the cheek, and in the walls of the pharynx. We have about 10,000 taste buds. Okay, each taste bud would have about 50 to 150 taste cells. Okay, so the taste bud again is still not the receptor. Okay, the receptor would be found in these taste cells. So taste receptors are chemoreceptors. Again, you'd have to, in order to taste something, you have to have saliva. Whatever you're eating is going to dissolve in the saliva, changing the chemistry of saliva, and that would stimulate these chemoreceptors. Because there's a lot of wear and tear in the mouth due to the chewing and so on, so the taste cells are replaced about every 3 days. Now here you can see the papilla, and at the very bottom is where you can find the taste buds. And here again, you can see one of these taste cells. So these are all either, smooth skeletal muscle fibers or, different parts, different cells in the tongue that are not related to taste. But if you look at these cells right here, these are the taste cells, and they have the little hairs at the end, taste hair. When those are stimulated, they are going to send the impulses on the different sensory neurons. We have 5 primary taste sensations. So our taste receptors or hair cells are able to detect 5 different stimuli, whether sweet, those will be stimulated by carbs, sugar, for example. Sour, that's stimulated by acid, like lemon and orange. Salty, those are stimulated by sodium, so for example, salt and chips. Bitter taste receptors are stimulated by organic compounds like magnesium and calcium salts. While umami, which is something that is relatively recent in the discovery, these are stimulated by amino acids and MSG, and umami is really the ones that give that really nice flavor to Asian cuisine. Now, if you're into eating spicy foods, well, spicy foods are going to mainly stimulate the pain receptors and thermoreceptors. So we're really not tasting spicy food. We are either indulging in the pain or the temperature that is being caused by those spices. Taste receptors is another receptor that undergoes rapid adaptation. So you see that these chemoreceptors, they both have rapid adaptation, and that's why, you take that bite of your slice of pizza. Once you swallow it, you need another one because that taste is already gone. Now for the taste pathway, taste is carried on 3 different cranial nerves. We have the facial nerve, the glossopharyngeal nerve, and the vagus nerve. Okay, all of them are going to proceed to the thalamus, and then from the thalamus, these are going to be interpreted in the gustatory cortex that is found in the insula. So the cortical center, or the center of taste, is the gustatory cortex found inside of the insula lobe. Okay, so for now, that is it for your chemical receptors, and next we will be discussing hearing.